And welcome back, one and all, to the Movie Reviewers 100. My name is Scott, also known as Cineram here on this site, and I do the reviews here on Thursday. This week we are talking about movies that were deprived of Oscar nominations that they deserved. If the Oscars are important to you, then you are probably just as outraged as some of us at their omissions. Everyone talks every year about who got snubbed and things like that, and this year's been no different. Ray talked about The Searchers, a classic John Wayne Western, and Al talked about Drive, which came out last year. I have valued the Oscars less and less over the years. Of course, there are certain people that I want to see recognized because I know that they deserve it. And I was very happy a few years back when a string of people all got Best Director Oscars, such as Scorsese and then the Coen brothers a year later. Very happy to see that happen. As far as not getting Oscars, well, I believe it was Matthew who talked about The Dark Knight and how it deserved Oscars. It did actually win a couple Oscars, I think. It won Best Supporting Actor for Heath Ledger, but I think what he meant was that it deserved Best Picture and Best Director and all kinds of stuff. I wanted to talk a little bit about Goodfellas, which lost Best Director and Best Picture to Dances with Wolves, Kevin Costner. Of course, it did get nominated. Inception was also nominated for Best Picture, but the omission, the big omission, was no Best Director nomination for Christopher Nolan. That was kind of stupid, because Inception is a wonderful film. The big one for me from years past is Seven. Seven did get one Oscar nomination for editing. But it deserved so much more than that. This was far and away my favorite movie of that year. One of the most incredible experiences I've ever had seeing a film in the theater, and is still one of my favorites. I felt that, it deserved Best Picture, Best Actor, Best Director, Best Original Screenplay. That kind of seemed unlikely, I suppose, given the subject matter, but not even Best Cinematography nomination, not even a Best Makeup Effects nomination. I mean, come on, those makeup effects are so incredibly gruesome. Maybe they didn't nominate it just because they couldn't show clips of it on TV. I don't know. Big oversight there. And of course, Fincher also lost Best Director a couple years ago, last year actually, to Tom Hooper for The King's Speech, which I was also displeased by. But the movie that I want to talk about is a film that came out just last spring, so it's only about a year old. It's called Trust. This is a disc that I don't own this, I rented it basically from one of my shops, and luckily I have a couple of good shops that have a wide selection of movies. This was directed by David Schimmer, and it received 0 Oscar nominations of any kind. In fact, it wasn't even talked about as a possibility of getting Oscar nominations. There is a really good article that I believe is on the AV Club website, which is one of my favorite movie websites. And I'll link it below. Basically, it breaks down the 9 Best Picture nominations that are nominated this year, and explains why each one of them is reassuring to the viewers, to the audience. And that's important, I think, to Oscar contenders, especially Best Picture contenders. Trust is not reassuring. It is definitely not a reassuring movie. It is about a young girl who's just turned 14, trying to get on her high school's volleyball team. And she's had an online relationship with a kid named Charlie, who lives in California, is also a volleyball player, and he encourages her and gives her tips. He's a junior. Actually, he's not. He only says he's a junior, and he only says his name is Charlie, and only says he's in California, when in fact he's a 35-year-old guy who has made a habit of chatting up underage girls and then meeting them in person and then sexually assaulting them. And this is unfortunately what happens to Annie as well. He sort of breaks the bad news to her slowly. First he says, actually I'm not 16, I'm 20. And then later on he says, actually I'm not 20, I'm 25, I'm a graduate student. And then of course when he shows up, he's actually 35, and he says, but I thought age didn't matter. We have a connection. You and I are soulmates, and I think you're so beautiful, and can't we just overlook this whole age thing? It's sickening. It really is. And the actor, playing the guy, I don't know what his name is, but if this movie had been seen by more people, it'd probably get a lot of people hating him, just like Aaron Eckhart did when he was in The Company of Men. The girls' parents are played by Clive Owen and Catherine Keener. They're really terrific, and the whole point of the film basically is, obviously they call the cops and the FBI, and they figure out ways to try and catch the guy. He's very, very careful. He bounces his IP address through different countries, and he uses temporary cell phones and credit cards, all kinds of stuff to keep himself from being tracked down. So without actually catching the guy or even knowing who he is, they're left to sort of deal with things on their own. Their family kind of falls apart, you know, they're all sort of at odds with each other as to how to handle the situation. And of course the girl still thinks that she's in love with this guy, and that he's in love with her, and that once this whole business with her parents and the federal government goes away, then they can be together, which of course is not going to happen. She has a number of scenes in which she talks to a social worker therapist, played by Viola Davis, who coincidentally is nominated for Best Actress for The Help this year. So good on that. This is a fantastic movie, and I just rewatched this actually just now before making this video, and said last year it was the best movie I've seen all year, and that still holds up. It still is. Of course, last year was kind of disappointing overall, but still very good. This film is pretty fantastic. Would have been on probably my top 10 list any year. The girl is Liana Liberato, I think that's her name, Liberato. And she's not a 19-year-old or a 22-year-old playing a 14-year-old. She actually is that age, so that's very authentic. And David Schimmer, there's this featurette on the disc in which David Schimmer talks about how he's on this rape crisis center. He's on the board of directors, and so he's dealt with victims and the families of victims. So, you know, he wanted to be a really authentic experience where they sort of deal with how their family and their lives have been torn apart, and how everything has just sort of been turned upside down by this event. And how there's this ripple effect throughout the girl's family and friends and everything like that. Everyone's treating her differently, and she's just horribly upset by the whole thing, as is everyone. An excellent film, a really, really good film. And I don't know, it might have been nominated for the Spirit Awards. I'm not really sure about that, but certainly no Oscar nominations. I would have noticed. So there's my review. Trust, not an easy movie to sit through. Definitely not a barrel of laughs. So proceed with caution. But it is quite good, and I highly recommend it. So that is my review. We are doing our not nominated themes, of course, because the Oscars are about to happen on the 26th Sunday. But we'll have a new theme, of course, starting tomorrow, Friday, when we begin our new theme week. So I hope you'll tune in for that. Be sure and check out the other guys' reviews if you haven't on their favorite movies that were deprived of Oscar nominations. Thanks very much for watching. Subscribe, leave comments, like us, all that kind of stuff. Thanks again. Bye.